My name is Robert Foster. I'm going to take you to tour guide of Blender animation 3D software. Hi there, my name is Robert Foster. So, with the long story short, to get to the website, you click on website www.blender.org. Let me take you to the site now. Okay, this is the website www.blender.org. Okay, this is the features about Blender. Take it back to the website. Also, you can download Blender. If you run a Windows, install that or the WinZip. Mac is only a WinZip, so you just unzip the files. And whatever software you have, we just install it, the Blender, and so once you install it, you run it this way. So Blender is a free program, 100% open source, and let me take you to the tutorial guide. First, this is the information bar, info bar we call it. This is the file. You click on file. This is where you save, create new, export, etc. etc. This is the whole foundation to the Blender. To the file. This is render. Anything about rendering and how you render it and everything else in Blender. This is the window. Duplicate the window. Target a full view. This is the help menu. This is the help menu in Blender. Anything about Blender, anything about open source or anything else. Excuse me. Let me click this on. Anything help? They got the website, tutorials, DVDs. Will take you to the tour guide, but today I'm going to take you for the whole thing of Blender, the whole interfacial. Just we're gonna knock off the interfacial today. Nothing else super fancy. So let's get on it. Let's get to it. This is the layout screen, we call it. You see the layout screen. Choose the layout. There's different modes of layouts. Yet Blender has a built-in game engine, and also they have logic bricks. So if you're not a programmer, you can make a video game, and depends. Once you learn the Blender interfacial and the logic bricks and stuff like that. But that's some other tutorial about the BGA called Blender Game Engine System function. And also on top of that, we have a motion tracking system integrated in Blender by tracking objects and animals, whatever you want to track and you're seeing. That's another tutorial. We got scripting. Like I said, you could just script you could script in Blender to the game engine or customization of Blender, whatever you're doing. It's UV editing, that's different software, and video editing, and compositing. Compositing is a node-based. Note this is not like a layer base. It's not a layer based compositing. It's a node based compositing. So you're going to use a lot of nodes, and some people are afraid of nodes. If you're from After Effects or anything, and you used to layer, this is more node based, and the node based editing is powerful. Node based editing and etc. So make that long story short, let's go to the next part. The add layout or modes, you call it. You add and you delete. This is called the scenes. Currently right now we're in scene 1, and you click on the bar if you have multiple scenes. But add a scene, you press the add button or delete a scene. This is the render scene. There's the render modes, the different render modes. Like I say, we're not gonna cover the render or the game engine or cycles. Right now, we're currently using Blender Render for the beginners. We show you how to render in Blender, and then we talk about cycles. Cycles is a totally different tutorial from there. So um, that's another tutorial. Um, Click on the icon to open the splash screen. This is the splash screen of Blender. This is the splash screen of Blender. Splash screen of Blender. That's the splash screen. Click on that. Over here, there's the versions of Blender. So right now, we current version is 2.74. Vertices are 8, 6, tutorial 2, 6, 2, 6, 8. Vertices, faces, and all that stuff. That's more mathematical. We're not going to get too much into it. This is how many objects in the scene. There are 3 right now. Currently selecting how many lamps, how many memories you got. So, and right now, I'll tell you the name of cube. Okay, we'll go over here. Let's go over here. This is the outline tool. This is all the objects in the outline tool. This is all the name. If you want to quick, if you have too many objects in the scene, you can't select objects. This is where you go to select multiple object. To expand it, to just to left click it. When you go to your, note this, when you go into your object view mode, the object view, it switch. We're gonna get to that later. Okay, this is all the layout for the scenes. The currently, you select the scene, it's by left clicking like any other software, and you notice that when you click on them, the two properly switch and change. This is right now, if you select cube, this is all the properties for the cube started from here, but everything else will stay the same. These 4 stay the same for all objects. Then okay, this is a render data scene. So this is the default data scenes. They'll tell you about this different things about in the scene. So more about the object or relationships or these buttons, what they do. That's later in the tutorial. We're not going to cover all what they do right now, because these are different modes or different selections or different data points of in the scene, and they will change every time you click, except for these 4, except for the render button, the image render button, the scene data layer render, the data scene, the scene data, and the world settings. They're different. Okay, different every time. So let's zoom out. Okay, on the bottom of your screen, you see on your bottom, it's your time bar. Let's zoom in that. This is just a time bar. All the properties to the time bar. Different functions of the time bar. You got view. If you want to see that, we got view, marker, frame, playback, lock frames. This is alternative of stop and start frames. This is how many frames are in there. Right now we currently have 250 frames. You could narrate how many frames is per second. You could go to a calculator or anything. These are forward and backward, anything. This is sequence. If you want to synchronize your frame, this is record, and this is keys, and you can add or delete keys or whatever you want. Okay, so that's the key inputs and all the functions. Okay, on keep current, stay on here. Down here is the object right here. You see right here, this is the object. This is the object view. We're about to get to that right now. So right here on the side of the object view is each view has different. Okay, translate function is G, rotate function is R, scale function is S, mirror is M. You can mirror, oh actually not mirror, control M is mirror. That's mirror on a object, guys. We're gonna talk modifiers later about modifiers using mirror tool. This is a different mirror, you know what I mean? So how you add mirrors and do use mirrors, you use modifiers. That's a totally different tutorial. We'll cover about mirrors or anything, how you use mirrors. This is duplicate your scene. And shortcut key for that one is Shift D. Note this, Blender used a lot of shortcuts to make things quicker. If you're newbie, you'll be using this a lot, but I would not recommend to use this too much, but you could use it as an alternative. Okay, this is all your duplication, duplicate links. That's like a kind of mirror type of thing. You duplicate the link and you move one vert and move the other on the other side. That's like kind of mirror function. You delete a scene by press the delete button or the X key. Join is control J. This is object orientation thing. It's the little doohickey inside the object. We call it duplicate or pivot point. This is a shader. This is shader functions. This only work only on objects, not on only on cube or mesh objects. We call it mesh. On like cube, cylinder, planes, whatever, could be smooth or flattened. You know what I mean? And this is transfer data and stuff like that. And this history. On here, these are tags. We call them tabs or tabs. This create primitives. You could easily add a primitive from here. This is relationship. This is animation settings, the physics, and set on. Let's go over here into our. Let's go over here to our object view. Now we in our object view. Let me zoom in real quick. Sometimes it's like it's laggy. Let me zoom out. Okay, middle mouse button. Note this, Blender is a 3-button mouse, no 2-button mouse, 3-button mouse. Sorry about the glitching. Sometimes they glitch, and Blender has a 3-button mouse. So right now, if you select left click, does not select things. This right here, we call this the 3D cursor. Now the 3D cursor will let you move object and the important of the 3D cursor. The 3D cursor is a guide tool. You can add things where if you move your cursor here, you can add a cube here. So more about the 3D cursor and what it could do. It's a very important tool, and people miss great of the selection tool. You could use the selection tool for anything. So right now, to select an object is left click. Over here, left click on a lamp. To select on a camera, you select that. To select back on the cube, select that. Over here, these widgets. These are widgets. These called axes. These three pointers. They're called axes. There are 3 axes in here. The Z stands for up and down. The X is stand for back and forth. The Y stand for back and forth. The X is up and down. You know what I mean? Left to right, forward and backward, X and Y. If you got it reverse or anything, doesn't matter where your viewpoint is. It's still like if the viewpoint is this way, it's up and down, and this way it's left and right. It's get confusing when you turn your axes around, and vice versa. But that's what it stands for. Sometimes your 3D systems might be different. Z might be up and down. Z might be forward and back. You know what I mean? Y is up and down. X is left and right. You know what I mean? So for Photoshop users, it's different. And down here, these are the tools for the objects. So right now, if you right click, it gets different tools, but you can't go on. These are modes. You can't go on edit mode on none of these objects, like your camera or nothing like that. But you could still use the modes from here because This is for object properties and stuff like that, or object we call it object data. Let's select that, right click. Excuse me. Let's zoom in and let's go down the bottom and show you. This is viewport. This is view. There's a lot of function in viewport. Um, Also, I'm gonna show you hidden keys too. So to hide your toolbars is T key, letter T. T is time. Press T, hide it, and press T to unhide. Okay, and it shows you right here. The NT is properties. That's your two properties. I'm gonna show you that in a minute. This is selection. The different selection in your objects. This is add. So you could add. You could add. Well, like you said, you can add anywhere. So this add button allows you to add objects, and also create button lets you add objects too, permanents. This is a permanent button too. So also the shortcut for date is Shift A. Shift A, the shortcut key. Shift and the letter A. Okay. Object is the data for the objects. You can duplicate. This is a really handy tool. And there's a lot cover on that tool, but I'm not going to cover more detail on that tool because this is just the object data. You know what I mean? And also this is modes to the object. It's only meshes to get modes. Meshes and curves and NURBS get modes. Curves only have two: edit and object. The meshes have several modes. So you have object, edit, sculpt, vertex paint, weight paint, and texture paint. Over here, these are shading modes in the viewport. You get currently right now, if you want to see through object, you use wireframe. And solid, you just solid. You know what I mean? And this, you will never use this right now because right now we'll discuss about that. That's for game engine or anything you want to see real-time rendering, GSSL. That's a different render point. I'm going to show you that later. This is materials. That's materials where you want to see the materials on the fly. You can see materials on the fly with texture. This is both the same, but with texture, you have to see with UV editing with the texture. Materials, you only use the material with the material nodes. This is the pivot point. The pivot point are different modes or pivots. You see that little doohickey in the middle? They call that the pivot. That little orange dots, that's the pivot. You move that pivot anywhere in the edit mode to rotate and scale. Okay? This is the translate tool or the transform tool. Over here, this arrow right here, that's the translate. This arrow is the trans mode. This is a 3D transform 3D transform manipulator widget. Transform manipulator controller. Over here is the rotate tool. You can rotate from here. Over here is the scale tool. You scale your object, and like I say, the shortcut keys for rotating and scaling and moving, we cover that right now. This is global. See all the durations, global grab. Okay, G for global. That's why I say global grab. It's global all axes. That's why the G stood for. You press G, and you press Z. You go up and down. The letter Z. You press G again. You press Y. Go back and forth. Okay, let's undo that. Control Z. G and X. You get it, left and right. And these are global orientations. That's different. Right now, we're not going to cover that. These are layers. These are layers in the scenes. So if you want to move an object or instead of hiding object, the hide object is Control. It's Alt H. Oh. H to hide. H to hide. Wait a minute. H to hide. Alt H to unhide. And that's hiding things. Now moving things to layers, that you click on layers, what happened? I can't see my cube. Where's my cube at? Well, it's on another layer, like Photoshop. To select on a layer, that's where your object is. To move the object to a different layer is press M. The letter M as in milk or move. So we'll move to another layer, press select. This the window pops up, so you select that, and that move to another layer. Note this, we're going to cover more about layers, anything, but I'm just going to show you a concept what the layer does. So go back to layer, and we go back to press M to go back to layer 1 to move back to layer 1. This is the link tools, or these are snapping tools, you call these, and stuff like that. And let me move this out, zoom this out, and this is called render in GPS mode. You got it? You get it. So now you know how to move, G, scale, S, rotate, R, and other X's, Z, X, Y, G is global grab. You can scale, duplicate, Shift D, delete, X. You can duplicate multiple times, select multiple object, hold down Shift and right click, join, Control J, that's join. Select your origins inside the geometry. You can select that. You can rotate on the axes, scale down, rotate on any axis you want to. You can scale on, instead of Z frame or Z frame, scale on any axis you want to scale onto. Scale again on the X axis, and that's cover all the bases of the tutorial. That cover all the bases of the tutorial. Note this, in the tutorial in Blender, is we know we get to more information you need about Blender. I cover on a basic tutorial. I'm trying to get it down to 5 minutes and stuff like that. It's pretty much simple. This is all we learning right now is the basic of Blender, and that's all we getting. Nothing else, nothing more. We will cover more lessons of Blender further in the tutorial. In the tutorial, we will cover, the next tutorial we cover more advanced interfacial in Blender. Interfacial Blender in the tutorial. So what you're gonna do is look up Blender on YouTube to basic Blender. Some people cover over your head, but if you got it from here, you could go on the website and get more information. If you can't wait till the next video, I try to cover the best ability I can. I know some people are very newbies, and some people can't even figure this out. And like I said, this might be very hard for you. If it's really something interest and see how the models work, how 3D work, how they do 3D movies and all that stuff, it is complicated. 3D ain't for everybody. I would say 3D ain't for everybody. You gotta take your time. Note this, you're not gonna learn Blender in a day or in a week. It might take you 3-4 weeks to get familiar almost with Blender. Really do something in Blender, it might take you 6 months to a year to actually feel comfortable in Blender. You could get started and do something in Blender, but it will take you, depends on people. Like I said, I just told you 6 months, but you can get familiar of Blender in a couple of weeks. Get familiar of it in a couple of weeks. But really get detailed into really doing something like a really actual project. Do not do a project while you're still learning Blender. I recommend it to really the grasp on detail. Blender has a lot of buttons to remember, and some people can't remember the buttons. The two main keys you might learn, and I will teach you. You don't have to learn all those buttons. You learn what you learn in Blender, what you could learn in Comcast. Use that and master that. Those other buttons will come in key. You follow tutorials, you get lost. Recommend yourself, pace yourself to learn Blender. Okay? Now, I'm here to teach you what you know. If you don't know Blender, if you knew Blender, I hope this tutorial will help you. And if it doesn't, I try, because television, like I said, television is hard. Television is very hard to try to compensation me of me. It took me a while to put Blender on TV. So this is up. Sorry, it's kind of noobish, but because it is noobish, because people, I'm teaching the noob. I'm not teaching anybody advanced tutorials. Even I can't do advanced tutorials. Even I'm an expert, I can't do advanced tutorials off the back. So, I love your comments. I love your respect. Thank you, and I appreciate it. And I see you when I spin it. Peace.